You are now entering That One Studio for the What Are You Made Of show with your host, Mike C-Roc, and his guest, who will be sharing what they're made of. The journey to success has been invisible until now. Sit back, relax, get your notepad ready, and enjoy the show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, everyone, to the What Are You Made Of show here in That One Studio. We are live on YouTube as well, my YouTube channel, Mike C-Roc. Check it out if you haven't yet. If you're listening to the podcast or watching a replay somewhere, make sure you go to YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm putting out content to benefit you and to help elevate you and to help you understand that you're unstoppable to live in the life of your dream, just once you decide to be. So welcome back. Thank you so much for your listenership and your support. I have great guests today. Once again, I have the ladies that run Modern Gen X Woman. And this is a powerful thing for me because I encourage women all the time. I came from a broken home. Remember being my mom and myself, and then my mom and my sister, and seeing my mom go through a lot of things. And the fact that she, at 30-something, quit her job at DuPont after, I don't know how many years, 20-some years, and went back to nursing school with 4 kids at the time, became a success. I mean, I've seen this, and so I always love to see the journey women take and to empower and encourage women. And it's my honor to have Jackie Gadeen and Mimi Bishop in the building with your boy C-Roc here on the What Are You Made Of show. They are the co-founders of Modern Gen X Women, or also it's called, this is the consulting company, MGXW. Through coaching and consulting, they propel the professional success and wealth of women 40 plus. Their mission is for women to be seen and heard and to confidently lead and never follow. They ignite within them the realization of their untapped potential, leveraging their earned wisdom to defy the status quo and refuse to accept the unacceptable. You can listen to their podcast, Modern Gen X Women, stream it everywhere. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you so much for having us. We're really pumped to be here.
Yeah, thanks. Mike.
Yeah. Do you guys always do everything together?
Mostly.
We do. It's kind of, and we actually, sometimes I'll introduce myself as Mimi, even though I'm Jackie. That's how much we work together. Business partners, we really.
Friends, the whole 9 yards. But yeah, I'm sure you know, when you're building a business, you are always 100% in. And so Jackie and I are in all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is the people that are watching probably can't see the names on the bottom of the screen, but I have names, and thank God they're sitting in the right position so that I can remember who they are, because I just met these ladies, and it's going to be awesome to get to know you ladies and find out what you're made of. That's the next question of the show, though, and we always go into this before I go any further because I get down rabbit holes very easily, and I would love to know, Jackie and Mimi, what are you guys made of?
So this is Mimi. I will start. I am made of grit and resilience, and that could either be a great thing or a bad thing, but I'm taking it as a good thing because it's one of those situations I feel like so similar to what you shared about your mom, right? Where sometimes women are just handed such difficult circumstances, and you really need to search for that grit and that resilience to get back up. And I like to say sometimes you take a hit, you'll fall down, and you got to get back up. You got to dust yourself up and get back up. And when you know that you have the ability to do that, it makes life a lot less scary. And I think you are more willing to jump in and take the risks.
Wow.
And
okay.
so this
that.
is Jackie.
Jackie?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Jackie.
I'll just go into mine. Yeah. So I am, what I'm made of is positivity, high energy, and determination. And I think that combination has really made me who I am today, not only as a professional, but as a human. And I had to have those things, as many of your listeners have. We've dealt with hardships. You know, my husband was diagnosed with cancer when he was 30. And so our life went from playing house to really being grown-ups at a very young married, 1 year into our marriage. We went through 6 rounds of IVF and not being able to have a child. So if I didn't have positivity or determination to be a mom, even if the way and in which I was going to become a mom looked different than what I thought, I probably would have given up. And life is all about situations and circumstances, and those things happen, as Mimi said. And you might not want to be able to get back up right away, but you have to try to take that and use it to learn and grow and expand yourself and challenge yourself. You're more capable than we think we are.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is the things you guys have been through qualify you now because you got through them to not only carry yourself through things, but also help other people, help other ladies, 40 plus, do the same kind of thing. Because, a lot of times I talked about this before the show with you that a lot of people feel alone when they're going through things, your
Yeah,
successes and your failures.
I think for both, right? So sometimes when we have a success, we are afraid to share it because we feel like we will be judged or what will people think? Am I bragging? That kind of thing. And on the flip side, sometimes as women, we are very private about some of the difficult things, either because we're not sure that people could ever think that we are thinking these things when things get really difficult, or that we're just not allowed to share where we may be struggling or ask for help. It's very common that women are the ones to help others, but when we need help, it's very hard to ask. Can really add to a sense of loneliness and isolation, especially when you're struggling, which is never a great combination.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the success part, I've been through it. Men go through this when you're with your buddies and you tell your buddies something that's good that's happening. And most people don't celebrate with other people. Most people
No.
compare themselves, so that makes them feel bad. So then it's like, well, I want to share this with someone, it reminds me of a story, and I love stories, guys. So I hope you don't mind, and I would love for you guys to share stories, specific stories, on whatever topic that we're talking about. But I remember my stepfather passed away in January 2019, and I just remember after he passed, like things happened great, and I wanted to share it with someone, and I forgot that he passed. And reach for the phone and text him or tell him or call him, and it's like, oh man, And so, I think that even when you have someone, like you said, you hold back from it. But what do you think? Do you think you should share it anyway? Because look, your intention's what matters, and the intention could be that you want to inspire people that they could do things too. And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I believe you should always, with the right intention, you should share it because the reaction of somebody else is actually not a reflection of you. Feels jealous, or if somebody feels upset, or if somebody feels disappointed in themselves, that is not a reflection of you. And so we can't control how other people feel. And I think as women specifically, and even as you had shared, but women tend to not brag or say too much because they go from confidence to arrogance, right? They go from leading to bitchy and bossy. So all of those things are these double binds that we have to deal with. So we tend to quiet our voices. And I have to tell you, for women 40 plus specifically, they're starting to get really tired of not being seen and heard. So you deserve to be seen and heard if you're listening to this. I don't care if you're a man or if you're a woman. And you should share it regardless of, as long as your intention is to ignite and inspire and share and be honest and genuine and vulnerable. Because the person who shares their great stuff is going to be the same person that shares their flaws. And they need to be okay to do that too.
Yeah, I was usually when I'm listening to people on my show, I shake my head because I'm like acknowledging, but then you started saying something about bitchy and bossy, and I was like, I better not shake my head at this point. I just better stay out of this one. So, if you noticed, I was like, yeah, yeah, and then I was like, still like a statue. So, how did you both meet? Tell me the origin story of you guys' relationship.
Oh, I love to tell this story. So we met through a common friend. That's the short story. Jackie had heard about me for many years. I heard about her for many years. And when Jackie left her big corporate job first, and then I left my big corporate job a couple of years later, Jackie said to this mutual friend, will you introduce us? Which we always laugh about because I'm a tremendous introvert. And at the time I was incredibly shy and was almost afraid to meet her for a cup of coffee. And so
It almost didn't.
It almost didn't. And so glad that I did, because really over what we call that innocent cup of coffee, we planted the seed for what would eventually become this business. And then the best part of this entire story is years later, we were working together. Our business was well underway. And I said, I think I actually sat behind you at a conference like 10 years ago. Were you wearing X, Y, and Z? And she's like, oh my God, yes, I was. And I was like, I loved your outfit. You stood out in my mind. I never would in a million years would have known the impact this woman would have on my life. But that's the story in a nutshell.
Well, what's the impact that she's had on your life? Why don't you share that?
Well, really creating this seed of this empire, but also, and it really ties back to knowing what you're made of, right? I shared that I was very shy and almost didn't want to, I wanted to build a business. I knew I had it in me, and yet there was a part of me that just felt so shy and insecure about putting myself out there. And so meeting Jackie has really put another layer into what I am made of, where now I have the ability to go out there and confidently talk about who I am, what we do. I really enjoy meeting people now, building the relationship. It's really shifted my perspective, and it's made a tremendous difference.
Thinking about that when you're talking about starting a business, and I want to hear how you guys got into the conversation about starting a business too. But when you do that, like I realize this too, like, I'm always thinking, well, I'm limitless. I can do anything. I'm not going to, I mean, nothing's impossible. But we don't talk about the subconscious things that you don't even know are there, that you've made decisions, and decisions create beliefs. You don't even know that's there until you really figure out a strategy to assess that, to dig deep. And, that's the thing that I thought about the other day was not just me, but like I have people that work with me, partners and teammates. And it's not just me, but it's like a combination, not a combination, but a cluster of all of these limited beliefs together. And they lock hands, and then it stymies business growth. So how did it originate, the business idea from you guys? And how did that get talking? And then how did you start to execute upon that and start moving towards that vision?
It's so ironic that you mentioned the subconscious and the limiting beliefs, because that's actually the seed of the idea that launched our business. So when I went back to coaching school, I was an executive in media for many, many years. And then I went back to coaching school, and my background and coaching principles were based in neuroscience. And Mimi went back to coaching school, and hers were based on emotional energy leadership. And what we recognized was that these two very different but somewhat connected methodologies for moving people through to the other side could be much more powerful if we built frameworks that actually connected those. So what we did was we decided to build frameworks that brought in this idea of your thoughts create your emotions, and then your actions from those emotions create the outcome. And then how do you change the wiring within your brain to be able to close the gap between what you consciously want, right? I want to be a success, I'm limitless, and your subconscious settings, but I'm afraid, but maybe everyone won't like me, or anything else that comes up. And so funny enough, that was the idea. And when it came together, we recognized that there was this whole big program that we can create on this. And then we were talking about what it felt to be middle-aged, hitting this pinnacle in our career separately, and recognizing that the goalpost moved and we no longer wanted that. We saw ourselves in the other women, and how when you get into your 40s and in midlife, oftentimes there's this realization that what you want isn't where you are, and that the rules have changed and you don't know what to do with that. So all of that really came together to launch the organization.
So when you did that though, and you decided to, what were the first steps that you took to really put together this business?
The first thing we did is we really mapped out a formula. We call it the Resting Mind Formula, which uses awareness and energy leadership and neuroscience to identify a lot of the things that hold people back, and then also help them shift so they can create the change that they're looking for, and most importantly, make that change sustainable over the long run. So all of our frameworks are based on this formula. So that was really the first thing. We spent quite some time really investigating and understanding how we can put both of our coaching philosophies and backgrounds together in a way that would really complement one another, and most importantly, help move the needle for people.
And then we created a plan because Mimi so we're great business partners. We didn't even know this going into business together. So, hindsight, we're very lucky that it ended up being such a great relationship because we are very different. So Mimi is very much about, planning and figuring out the next steps and executing. And I'm really good at the big idea and figuring out where we want to go, and then we work together to figure out how to get there. So Mimi and I really put together a plan, like what do we want to accomplish by the end of this year? What are our strengths separately, and how do we complement those? How do we process? How do we communicate? So a lot of it came to not only the business, but how we were going to leverage our own skills and talents in order to make the best choice for the business. And 4.5 years later, we find ourselves very lucky because when we meet solopreneurs, they always say, "I wish I had a Jackie or a Mimi to do this with."
Right. And in theory, having a partner is fantastic until you realize, you're 6 months in and you can't stand the other person, right? We were very lucky that didn't happen. But I think also we were very cognizant of understanding where our differences were, so that we could bridge that gap when hiccups came up. We've been called the pressure cooker and the pressure cooker and the microwave. She's the microwave. She wants to get things done fast, and I'm the slow cooker.
Yeah.
I take my time. I like to mull over it, think through everything. But in a business partnership, both aspects are great. And then also sometimes we have to temper one another. If she's going too fast and I'm like, wait a second, like we're getting sloppy, we need to slow it down, I'll do that. And versus sometimes I'm digging my heels in too long about something that doesn't need to be marinated on that long. Yeah. Sorry, I had to keep the food metaphor there. And it's time to speed things up.
Well, do you know that, I have partnerships as well and know the analytical mind versus the analyzer versus the doer and all these different personalities, right? And you think that the opposites sometimes would complement each other, but sometimes I got to be honest, like the analytical people drive me nuts because it slows me down. You guys run into that, like where it's like, no, come on, Mimi, get your shit together. Like this is just do it. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's her favorite saying. It's
doesn't have to be
done,
perfect.
not perfect.
Yeah.
The thing is also knowing that's coming from, right? So if one of us raises an objection over the way something is happening, it's usually because of very good reason. And so it's not a personal thing. It's about, all right, this is our goal. And are we using our time wisely or our brain wisely and efficiently to get to that goal? So it's not like, hey, you always do this way and I don't like it. It's not about that. It's about, listen, we need to meet this objective and this is probably a better way to go about it.
And it's about communicating, right? So if you trust each other and you communicate, we never talk in generalities unless we're joking with each other. Mm-hmm. But we talk in specifics. It's not, you're going too slow. It's, I know that you really love to make sure that we have our process in place, but I think what we're doing is you're putting the cart before the horse. So can we stop on the process? Let's figure this out, and then let's go back and create this process we could replicate. So it's really about being specific. If you do have these different ways of communicating, I'm an external processor. I talk things out. And now I'm always like, okay, Mimi, I know that you need to process this. I want to share this idea with you. And I wanted to sit with you and then come back when you're ready to. But it's about giving each other that space, but also recognizing that if you do it the right way, it actually doesn't slow you down for someone as fast as I am, because you can go off and work on something else while that person is thinking through that piece. And when they come back, it's going to happen so much quicker that it actually makes the process go faster. So, but it is definitely a learning, and really it's a communication piece.
Yeah, I'll just add, I think the only time when it really comes to the surface is when we are driving in the car, because she drives like a lunatic and she tells me I drive like a grandma. So we can never agree.
Wait. That was a very funny. So I'm going to call this out. She said, I drive like a lunatic. And then she tells me I drive like, she doesn't admit that she drives like a,
I'm like a
no,
grandma.
I said, and she tells me I drive as if that's not a fact. So just wanted to point that out.
I drive like a
You can see
grandma.
why
I take it. I own it. But it goes down to that. All bets are off though when we're in the car. We just let it fly.
That's awesome. So when you guys started out and you got your first offering together, your framework, your first offering, your first idea that you're going to put out to the world, right? What was your first method of go to market? Like what channels, communication channels did you use with your messaging? You obviously had your avatar dialed in, but what channels did you use? Number one. And then like, did it go great at first or did it like tank? And then you had to like, can you take us through that? Because listen, I've been through it many times. I've been a lot of startups. I help a lot of people, but a lot of people don't understand that it doesn't just go off like a hitch, like you expect it to. So can you kind of share that part of the journey?
Mike, it tanked big time.
Her mom promised to show up for our
She
first
didn't.
webinar, and she didn't
So
even show
our
up.
very first, we dabbled our toe in a little bit. I think the very first thing we did was a Facebook group, which we still have, and it's going strong after all of these years. I'm actually very proud of that. But we then, after the Facebook group, we decided we were going to do this webinar, and no one showed up. Not even my mom, who promised she would. And then she said, "Well, it's too hard to get on." She couldn't figure it out. So we did it though with no one. We just kept going, and we did it, and we laugh about it now. I think we laughed about it that day too. But it just goes to show, I'm so glad you said this. I think there's a lot of talk about how easy it is to build a business,
Especially online.
And it's not, it's cluttered. And there is a lot that you need to do. You need to sell the webinar, right? And we didn't get that in the beginning. So there was a lot of learning around that. And originally our business was national. So eventually we did learn how to get an audience and build a list. And we also leveraged a lot of other online platforms where we would do presentations and webinars and workshops. So that worked wonderfully for a while. And still does to a certain extent. But what we realized, and part of this was even because of the pandemic, when you're forced to have to do everything online, you then realize, you know what, I kind of miss people, even me, the big introvert. And so we decided to really go to start doing things in person and more local, which we've been doing for the past 6 months. And we're absolutely loving that.
Yeah.
The local,
And the build business is blowing up
As a result.
tremendously as a result, because there's an absenteeism of in-person connecting and business building, and so the process of just getting business is so much faster because people are like, oh, I kind of like you guys,
Yeah.
Because I get to really know you guys, not just digitally. So we have a podcast, we still do webinars, but this has been, I think, the most fun we've had in a long time.
Yeah.
And what region do you guys live in? Where are you from?
Long Island, New York.
Okay. Long Island. So you guys do coffee talk?
Coffee talk.
do-
You can't tell by the prior accents.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So, so then from there, like that, you flopped. Okay, you didn't really flop because you could shot content on that webinar. You could use that content for evergreen or
Which we
repurpose
did.
it, right? Which is awesome. When did it finally click for you where you were like, oh, we have something here? Like, do you remember the moment where you started generating revenue and started helping people, and what was behind that success?
So we were generating revenue little bits, like one client here, one client there, 3 clients, 5 clients, right? We didn't have a full book of business, but then what we started doing was doing some group programs. So we would go out and we did something called the Career Academy, where we would take people through this series to be part of and coach them through that. And that's when we started seeing some significant revenue continuations. Then we started adding another piece to the business, and that flopped. So we went back to the career. For us, it's always been iterating and pivoting to react to what we're seeing, and we're not afraid to test and learn. And so that's been the greatest change that we've seen. And now while we still do a lot of one-on-one work, we're doing a lot more work in corporate. So we're working with organizations, everything from Meta and ESPN all the way down to mid-sized law firms and tech companies that are trying to up-level their leadership capabilities.
So I love that because they have the budget, unlike a lot of individuals, which is, great thing to go after. How did you, when you decided to do that, how did you start getting in touch with those people? Like, what was the communication channel for that, for the corporations?
Local networking. So we got involved with our local chambers of commerce and some local organizations right here. We've built nice relationships with some local press, and just making the connections and building relationships with people in our own backyard has been such a wonderful surprise in the way to grow the business. It's refreshing when you know that you're really giving back to your own community, and you start to see people over and over again at different events and make these connections. And it feels great that it's right in our own backyard. I think also coming from big media backgrounds in New York City, we both commuted into the city. We realized that there was a gap in content that was available for professionals out here on Long Island, where sometimes we feel like, the stepchild, and people forget about us. And so we are really setting out to change that for both women and men. There's a lot of opportunity here. There's a ton of talent that deserves to have the content and support that they deserve.
Are you guys way out on Long Island, or are you close to the city?
Close to the city.
Okay.
We're really close. And
Yeah.
we're in the city often. So we still,
Yeah.
a lot of the other side of the business or the other corporate avenues that we've gone have really been through the connections that we've had in media. So either clients that are one-on-one clients that work at big organizations and that have brought us in to do trainings, or connected us to the HR people, things like that. So it really is, and you know this, Mike, right? It really is about building relationships. That's how you build business. And it's easier to do that in person or than it is to do online nowadays, because breaking through the clutter, and everyone's online. And I think there's this I'm going to call the BS meter, right? You can do this and you can make six figures in 6 months, and that's not reality for most companies and most businesses. It takes a lot to be able to grow and to be able to then scale. And I think people need to be held accountable for those types of things that they say, because they just make people think that it's easy to start a website and build business, and it isn't.
Yeah,
it's not.
well, 100%. Because here's the thing: when you're in business, you go promote, right? You get an idea, you go promote. First of all, you got to dial that in. Okay, what's going to work for me to profit? So you're working on this promote. It takes time to do that. Then you profit, and when you're making sales and everything, then you're fulfilling those sales. As you're fulfilling those sales, you have to have time for that to happen and things to break. Customer service problems, communication problems. All that has to have time to break so that you can create SOPs around that breaking point, whatever breaks. So I learned all this too, because I'm one of the most impatient people. But what I started to realize is when we had a problem with a customer that was upset, communication problem, whatever, I got excited. I was like, good. This is what we need, because this means we're getting closer, because now we can create the SOP, the systems, the processes to get to where we want to go. But it takes time. You're right. And I think most people underestimate the amount of effort it takes to achieve a goal.
Yeah.
All
Yes.
across everything, right? Everybody underestimates it. And when they run into the problem because they underestimated it, they get discouraged. So if we can just start overestimating the amount of effort it's going to take, it's better than underestimating it, right?
Absolutely. We always laugh because people will be like, you have to stay motivated. And I was like, success has nothing to do with motivation. It has to do with discipline, and it has to do with taking precise action, because things just have to move forward, and you have to have the discipline to show up every day, regardless of how you feel, regardless of how yesterday was, regardless if you've had a success or a failure. And that is very hard for people to do. And it's very hard as an entrepreneur, because think about it. I don't know, what you did before, Mike, but before this, I ran business, the business side of Ad Age, which was a media company, very much into sales and marketing. That was my lane, right? Sales and marketing. And now all of a sudden I'm an entrepreneur, and I have to be SEO, I have to be digital marketing, I have to be a content creator, I have to be a website builder, I have to be a list manager, being able to do drip campaign. Well, all of a sudden we're out of our lanes, right? And we can't expect to do it all, but we also can't afford to hire everyone when you're first starting out. So it's really about being disciplined, and always, as an entrepreneur, being disciplined to spend at least 50% of your time on getting business. Because often, especially for women, they will spend time on all the things that aren't getting them business, because asking for money is uncomfortable. And then they find themselves 6 months in not realizing, why do I have no dollars? Why do I have no clients? So it really is about putting biz dev first, and that has to be very strategic and very specific.
And I will add to that also, adding moments of reflection daily on what worked well and what didn't. Even the things that you think that have gone great, Where can I improve? How could I do that differently? Every single day, take 5 minutes to take a look, because this way you'll see the progress that you're making, the areas where you can still work, and it will also allow you to quickly start to troubleshoot when things aren't working.
Yeah, what I found is elevation comes from assessment, what you're talking about right there, assessment and proximity. Proximity to people that have done it or know something. So those two things really I lean on for elevation, and I love that you said that. Now, as we wind down here, first of all, where can people find you, the best place to find you guys and engage with you?
Well, listen to our podcast, Modern Gen X Woman. The podcast is on all platforms, including Apple and Spotify. We have the Facebook community, so it's Modern Gen X Woman in Facebook. So please join us there. We're there regularly engaging with people. And also head on over to our website, moderngenxwoman.com, and you can download our.
All right. Well, listen, final question here. In podcasting, whether it's been going on shows or having your own, can you give me the effect podcasting has had on you and your business, and what's changed since you started podcasting till now?
The effect it's had on our business is reaching a larger group of people, but connecting with them emotionally. And so what I mean by that is, so often we will get a inquiry from a woman who has said, I've been listening to your podcast and this is so relatable. And I think for women in midlife, very often we feel isolated or we feel alone. Midlife can be scary and difficult. And hearing two women speak very candidly about their own experiences really impacts the women in our audience to keep going and persevere, even though things may feel very tricky. So for me, it's having that personal impact and large reach to help other women.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would just add to that it's also this feeling that because we are so real, people feel like they know us. So not only do they relate to what we're talking about, but we'll go someplace, and I was somewhere and a friend of mine was like, oh, this is Jackie. And this woman goes, talking to me, she goes, you're so familiar to me. And she's like, you're Jackie, like of Jackie, Mimi and Jackie, and so all of a sudden there was this relatability. And I think, again, the way to do business is relationships. So podcast allows you to build with your audience, and then when you meet them or when they connect with you, it feels so, it kind of takes years off of getting to know someone pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
it's magic.
Yeah, you know what's awesome is this book back here I wrote. I'm not even in Florida all the time, but I live in Maryland. I was in Florida eating dinner with my family, and somebody came up to me in a restaurant with the book in hand to get me to sign the book while I was at a restaurant. And
That's
podcasting
amazing.
is what did it for me. Podcasting has been the catalyst for everything that I've done with my personal brand, going global, everything that I've done. And so that's why I like to ask that question. So ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to have both of you on. I usually have one person, but you guys are very in sync and have made it a very pleasant experience and easy on me as a host. So thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, Mike. We're really excited about being part of it.
Thank you. And all of you that are watching, thank you so much for all of your support, all of the comments and engagement that you give me on, YouTube or Instagram or all that. I love all of you, and I appreciate you guys so much. Keep coming back. We're going to continue to bring you great guests here on the What Are You Made Of show in that one studio and on my YouTube channel, Mike C-Roc. Go check it out. Subscribe, like, comment, give us feedback. We have to remind you to do all that and encourage you to do that and let you know that we really appreciate it. Until next time, it's your boy C-Roc signing off. Be that one. C-Roc in the building. Trust is a must.